Welcome to Empathy Stories, where we explore powerful tales of transformation, love, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Today, we bring you the story of William Carter, a wealthy man whose life takes an unexpected turn when a chance encounter leads him to rediscover purpose, compassion, and legacy. On a crisp, snowy Christmas Eve, the city of Chicago lay blanketed in silence, its usual bustling streets subdued by the tranquil embrace of the holiday. Inside a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city, William Carter sat alone in his study, the crackling fire offering little warmth against the chill of his solitude. The room, filled with opulent furnishings and grand portraits, exuded wealth, yet it felt hollow, a stark contrast to the life it once housed. Above the fireplace, a portrait of Lillian, his late wife, smiled down, her warm gaze a haunting reminder of what he had lost. Lillian's absence was a wound that refused to heal. A year had passed since her death, yet William's grief lingered, sharp and unrelenting. He had spent decades building his empire, amassing wealth and influence, but no amount of success could fill the void she had left. The house that once echoed with her laughter now stood silent, and the emptiness gnawed at him, a constant reminder of the life he had taken for granted. As he swirled the amber liquid in his glass, William's thoughts drifted to the past. He remembered the way Lillian had insisted on decorating the Christmas tree herself, even as he dismissed her enthusiasm, too consumed by work to join her. He had always told himself there would be more time, more holidays, more moments to share. Now, those moments were gone, leaving behind only regret. A sudden chime jolted him from his reverie. The doorbell's sharp ring echoed through the vast halls, an unusual sound on a night like this. Frowning, William rose, his mind racing with possibilities. Who could be visiting at such an hour? For a fleeting moment, an irrational hope flickered within him, a desperate, foolish longing that it might somehow be Lillian. But as he opened the heavy oak door, the sight that greeted him was far from what he expected. Two small figures stood on the doorstep, shivering against the biting cold. A boy and a girl, no older than 10, looked up at him with wide, pleading eyes. The boy, thin and trembling, clutched his sister's hand tightly. His voice, soft yet determined, broke the silence. "Please, sir, we need help. Our mom is very sick." William's initial reaction was one of suspicion. In his world, where wealth often attracted deception, he had grown wary of strangers. But as he looked closer, something about the children tugged at his heart. Their clothes were worn but clean, their faces thin but filled with an earnestness that couldn't be feigned. The girl, her cheeks flushed from the cold, added in a trembling voice, "We just need money for medicine." For a moment, William hesitated, his instincts warring with an unfamiliar pang of compassion. Finally, he stepped aside, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Come in. Let's talk." The children entered cautiously, their small frames dwarfed by the grandeur of the foyer. William gestured for them to sit by the fire, their nervous movements betraying their discomfort in such an opulent setting. As they perched on the edge of the leather sofa, William studied them, noting their dignity despite their evident hardship. "You said your mother is ill," he prompted, his tone softer now. The boy nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and pride. "She has a high fever and hasn't been able to get out of bed for days. We've used up all our money on food. There's nothing left for medicine." The sincerity in the boy's voice struck William deeply. For years, he had been insulated from the struggles of others, his wealth shielding him from the harsh realities of life. Yet here were two children, braving the cold to seek help for their mother, their courage and determination a stark contrast to his own isolation. "What made you think I would help?" he asked, genuinely curious. The boy straightened, his voice unwavering despite his nerves. "We heard stories about you, Mr. Carter. People say you're rich and powerful." He hesitated, glancing at his sister before continuing. "And they said you used to be kind." The words hit William like a blow. Used to be kind. The phrase lingered, cutting through the layers of grief and bitterness that had consumed him. He looked away, staring into the fire as he wrestled with the truth of those words. Finally, he turned back to the children, his decision made. "How much do you need?" he asked. $200, the boy replied quickly, his voice filled with hope. William scoffed, rising to his feet. From a drawer, he retrieved a stack of bills, counting them briskly before handing the boy $500. "This should cover it," he said, dismissing their astonished gratitude with a wave of his hand. As the children prepared to leave, William surprised even himself by grabbing his coat. "Wait," he said, "I'm coming with you. It's Christmas Eve, and I doubt many pharmacies are open. I know one that operates 24 hours. The siblings exchanged a startled glance, but didn't protest. Together, they ventured out into the snowy night, the warmth of William's car a stark contrast to the modest destination they were headed for. At the pharmacy, William watched as the children eagerly picked out the medicine and a few basic groceries, their excitement and gratitude lighting a small spark of warmth in his chest. When they returned to the children's apartment, the contrast between their world and his was glaring. The small space was tidy but worn, filled with the scent of age and the faint hum of life lived on the edge of hardship. Their mother, pale and weak, struggled to sit up, her voice filled with gratitude as she thanked William for his kindness. As he drove back to his mansion that night, William felt something shift within him. For the first time in a year, his actions had meaning. The emptiness that had consumed him didn't feel as suffocating, replaced by a faint but undeniable sense of purpose. He glanced at the portrait of Lillian as he entered his study, her smile seeming to hold an unspoken message. Though he didn't fully understand it yet, William knew that this Christmas Eve had marked the beginning of something new, something that would change his life forever. The snow continued to fall gently over Chicago as William Carter sat in his study the morning after Christmas Eve, staring at the remnants of the night before. The bouquet of flowers Lucas and Emma had bought at the pharmacy lay on the side table, its lavender and white blossoms stark against the polished wood. Something about the children's visit had awakened a sense of curiosity within him, a pull he couldn't explain. Their earnestness, their determination, and the quiet strength they exuded, it all lingered in his mind, stirring questions he hadn't thought to ask in years. He rose from his chair and walked to the portrait of Lillian above the fireplace. Her gaze, forever warm and knowing, seemed to follow him. "You always had a way of seeing what I couldn't, didn't you?" he murmured aloud, his voice tinged with a mixture of fondness and regret. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Jennifer, his longtime housekeeper, entered hesitantly. "Mr. Carter, there's something you should see," she said, holding out an old leather-bound journal. "I found this in Mrs. Carter's study while organizing her belongings. It seems personal." William hesitated for a moment, then took the journal from Jennifer's hands. The familiar scrawl of Lillian's handwriting greeted him as he flipped open the first page. It was dated several years ago, the ink slightly faded but still legible. As he skimmed through the entries, he found himself drawn into the words of a woman who had quietly woven threads of kindness and compassion into the lives of those around her, even as he had been too consumed by his work to notice. One particular entry caught his eye, a passage describing a pair of siblings named Lucas and Emma. They were children of a single mother Lillian had met at the community center where she volunteered. She had written about their struggles, how their mother worked tirelessly to provide for them despite mounting challenges. Lillian had been deeply invested in helping them, offering food, clothing, and even financial support when times were especially tough. Her words painted a picture of two resilient, bright children who had captured her heart. William's hands trembled as he set the journal down. Lucas and Emma, the same children who had come to his door last night. The realization hit him with a force that left him breathless. All these years, Lillian had been quietly supporting this family, nurturing a connection he had never been aware of. He felt a pang of guilt. How could he not have known? How had he been so blind to the woman she was? The life she had built outside the walls of their marriage? Determined to learn more, William decided to visit the community center Lillian had written about. It was located in a modest neighborhood not far from the children's apartment, a world away from the wealth and grandeur he was accustomed to. As he entered the center's unassuming doors, he was greeted by the hum of activity, volunteers bustling about, children laughing in the corner, and a warm sense of camaraderie that seemed to permeate the air. Mr. Carter, a kind-looking woman in her 60s, approached him, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "I'm Ellen, the director here. I worked closely with your wife. She was extraordinary." William nodded, his throat tightening. "I didn't know much about her work here," he admitted, "but I'd like to. Can you tell me about what she did?" Ellen led him to a small office filled with shelves of files and photographs. She pulled out a folder labeled Carter and handed it to him. Inside were meticulous records Lillian had kept, notes on families she had helped, receipts for donations, and even handwritten letters of encouragement she had sent to struggling parents. Among the papers was a photograph of Lucas and Emma as toddlers, sitting on Lillian's lap, their smiles wide and bright. She adored those two, Ellen said, her voice soft. Their mother, Clara, went through some really tough times, but Lillian never gave up on her. She believed in people, even when they didn't believe in themselves. As William absorbed the stories, he felt a growing sense of awe for his late wife. She had seen value in places he had overlooked, found beauty in the struggles of others, and poured her heart into building a better world quietly, without seeking recognition or praise. He realized now that her compassion had been her greatest legacy, and it was a legacy he had a responsibility to honor. That evening, William returned to the children's apartment with a sense of purpose. Clara answered the door, her expression wary but polite. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice tinged with surprise. "I wasn't expecting you. I came to talk," William said gently. "About Lillian." Clara's eyes softened at the mention of Lillian's name, and she stepped aside to let him in. The children were in the living room, drawing on a worn coffee table, their laughter filling the small space. As William sat down, he noticed the care Clara had taken to create a warm home despite their limited means. It was a reflection of resilience, of love that thrived even in the face of adversity. Over the next hour, Clara shared stories of how Lillian had helped her through the darkest moments of her life. She spoke of Lillian's unwavering kindness, her belief in Clara's strength, and the joy she had brought to Lucas and Emma's lives. As William listened, he felt a profound sense of connection, not just to Lillian's memory, but to the family she had cherished. Before leaving, William made a promise to himself and to Clara. He would continue Lillian's work, not as a gesture of guilt or obligation, but as a way to keep her spirit alive. As he walked out into the cold night, the snow falling softly around him, he looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Lillian, for teaching me what truly matters." Though he had been blind to it in her lifetime, William now understood that Lillian's legacy was one of compassion, of seeing the humanity in others and acting to make their lives better. And for the first time in years, he felt a sense of clarity, a path forward that was illuminated not by wealth or ambition, but by love and purpose. Snow blanketed the city of Chicago as William Carter stood before his late wife's grave, the bouquet of her favorite lilies trembling in his hands. The chill of the winter morning seemed to fade as he looked at her name etched in stone, Lillian Grace Carter, beloved wife and advocate for hope. The words echoed in his mind, a reminder of the quiet yet monumental life she had lived. He knelt, placing the flowers gently at the base of the headstone. "Lillian," he began, his voice trembling, "I've learned more about you in these past weeks than I ever allowed myself to see while you were here. You gave so much, not for recognition, but because it was who you were. I was too blind to realize it then, but I see it now, and I promise you, I'll continue your work. I'll make you proud." As he rose, he felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through him. It wasn't enough to merely honor her memory. He needed to embody the compassion and kindness that had defined her life. Over the following months, William threw himself into building a foundation in Lillian's name. The Lillian Grace Foundation would be dedicated to supporting families in need, providing education, housing, and healthcare for communities like the one where Clara and her children lived. It was a mission that felt deeply personal, a way to continue the work Lillian had started and to give back in ways he had long neglected. Clara and her children became active participants in the Foundation's initiatives. Lucas and Emma, whose laughter now often filled the once silent halls of William's mansion, inspired him with their resilience and hope. He marveled at the bond they had formed with him, their trust slowly growing as they saw his genuine efforts to make a difference. One day, Clara approached William with an idea. Lillian always believed in the power of education, she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. What if we created a scholarship program? Something that could help kids like Lucas and Emma go further than we ever imagined. William's heart swelled with pride. That's a beautiful idea, he replied, and we'll name it after her. The Lillian Grace Scholarship Fund became the cornerstone of the foundation, offering opportunities to children from underprivileged backgrounds. William personally attended the first award ceremony, watching with tears in his eyes as the first recipients, including Lucas and Emma, stood on stage holding their certificates. The joy on their faces was a testament to Lillian's vision and his newfound commitment to making it a reality. As the foundation grew, so did William's relationships with those around him. Clara, who had once been wary of his intentions, began to see him not as the distant, cold millionaire she had imagined, but as a man transformed by loss and love. Their friendship deepened, built on mutual respect and a shared dedication to the Foundation's mission. One evening, as they sat in the community center Lillian had once cherished, Clara turned to William. "You've changed. You know," she said softly. "You're not the man I first met." Lillian would be proud. William smiled, his gaze distant but content. "It's because of her. She saw what I couldn't see, even in myself. And now I see it too." The community center became a hub of hope and activity, bustling with families who had once struggled but now found support and opportunity through the Foundation's programs. William's once empty mansion transformed into a home filled with laughter, warmth, and purpose. Lucas and Emma often spent their weekends there, helping with Foundation events and learning the values their godmother had held dear. As winter turned to spring, William stood on the balcony of his home, overlooking the city skyline. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the buildings that had once symbolized nothing more than wealth and ambition to him. Now, they stood as a backdrop to a life reshaped by love, compassion, and the legacy of a remarkable woman. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Lillian's absence would always be felt, but her presence remained in every act of kindness, every life touched by the Foundation, and every bond he had formed with those she had loved. Looking up at the first stars appearing in the evening sky, he whispered, "Thank you, Lillian, for guiding me back to what matters most." This was William Carter's new chapter, a life no longer defined by wealth or ambition, but by connection, purpose, and the quiet miracles that came from living with an open heart. Lillian's legacy had become his own, and through it, he had found not only redemption, but a family and a future filled with hope. The story of William Carter, Clara, and her children teaches us profound lessons about redemption, resilience, and the enduring power of love and legacy. William's journey is a testament to the idea that it is never too late to change. As a man consumed by wealth and success, he lived a life detached from the people who mattered most. Lillian's quiet acts of compassion, revealed to him only after her passing, opened his eyes to the true meaning of fulfillment. His transformation shows us that redemption requires both self-awareness and action. It's not enough to acknowledge past mistakes. What matters is the willingness to create change and make amends. Clara represents strength and resilience. Despite her struggles as a single mother, she raised her children with dignity, kindness, and hope. Her willingness to trust William, despite her initial hesitation, highlights the importance of forgiveness and collaboration in building something greater than oneself. Through her journey, we learn the power of community and mutual support in overcoming hardship. Lastly, Lillian's legacy reminds us that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can create ripples that transform lives. Her belief in helping others lives on through the foundation, proving that love and compassion can transcend even death, inspiring a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey. William's story reminds us that it's never too late to change, to embrace kindness, and to honor the legacies of those we love. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Empathy Stories for more inspiring tales. We value your thoughts, so leave a comment below and tell us how this story touched your heart. Until next time, stay kind and keep spreading empathy.